have John McMullen on the line now. We talk to John every night on The Fix, Monday to Friday, 7:30. Follow John on Twitter, at JFMcMullen. PhillyVoice.com and SI.com is where you can find all of John's written work, and you can listen to him host Extending the Play every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. So John ghosted me earlier, and that's okay because he had other things to do. The Eagles made a trade today, if you weren't aware. John, what's going on?
Hey, man, I don't know if I would call it ghosted. I would call it stuck in the muck of Zoom more than anything else. But, yeah, I guess some people could take it as ghosted. I apologize.
No, do not apologize. It was it's a good thing. I said, all right, he's busy. We're going to have a lot to get into, which we are. So did you see this coming, John? Was there any implications like this morning, late last night, anything on your radar before this became official?
No, I think the San Francisco 49ers move kind of predicated the situation. I think it's, now that you look in hindsight, it's pretty clear that the Eagles were, thinking about doing this, but we're going to hold their cards for a while, trying to figure out a way to get Zach Wilson, which was unlikely, and I think they knew it was unlikely and always going to be unlikely. But until that avenue is closed, you sort of keep it alive. And I think when San Francisco made that trade, it's evident they're going up to get a quarterback. You don't give up that kind of value for wide receivers or you just don't. Nobody in this league, not just the Eagles. So the 49ers made it abundantly clear they're going up to get a quarterback. So it became, even if the Jets decide to pass on Zach Wilson, which is unlikely, especially after today's pro day, then the 49ers would gobble him up, and he's out of the realm for the Eagles. So they were probably going to move down anyway. So they did it a little bit earlier than expected. But, it's a blustery day in the Delaware Valley, so I guess Howie wanted to create his own bluster.
What was your initial reaction, John, when the trade was announced and official? And just talk about your thoughts on it overall as well.
My initial reaction was that the Eagles defaulted to what they always do. And I just put it out on Twitter. If you think about it, and I looked it up, they don't pick they're not in the top 10 a lot. And really the genesis of this organization as it is today, the modern Eagles, starts in 1999 with Andy Reid, and that's where the philosophy was built. And they value quarterbacks, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. They've only had 4 picks in the top 10 over essentially 99 to 20, so 2 decades. Donovan McNabb, Corey Simon, Lane Johnson, Carson Wentz. Quarterback, defensive line, offensive line, quarterback. If you can't get the quarterback you like, that was Zach Wilson. Can't get the offensive lineman you like, that's Penei Sewell is not going to be there. There's no defensive lineman this season worthy of a top 10 pick. Got to get out. They don't see the value in the other positions.
So what?
By the way,
yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with, but it's abundantly clear that's their belief, and they stuck to it.
So just to confirm, it's their belief that there's not a player good enough combined with their needs and what they want at the quarterback position. They don't think the right guy's going to be there at 6 or even dare I say wide receiver.
No, they're just not taking a wide receiver at 6. They don't see the value in a wide receiver in the 6th overall pick. Now, they might. If you press me today, I think they're going to go corner, offensive lineman, or edge rusher at 12. But I could see him going Devontae Smith. And he might last to 12. A little bit more palatable for them at that spot than 6. And remember, you're gaining assets as well, and you're setting yourself up for really 2022 when they're going to make a big splash because they're going to have money again because they're taking the medicine with Carson Wentz. And as long as Wentz is the starting quarterback for the Colts, he doesn't even have to be successful. As long as he gets to that 75% mark of their offense plays, they're going to have 3 first-round picks in 2022. So from their standpoint, it's you get a year to look at Jalen Hurts. You'll figure out what he is. And if he can't play, or at least is, pretty indicative that he's not going to be a starting quarterback in this league, you have all the ammunition you need, starting with, in theory, you're going to be bad. So you're going to have a top 10 pick, 2 other picks on top of it in the first round. So you can go out and get Russell Wilson. If the Deshaun Watson stuff clears up and the allegations go away, maybe he's back in play on the trade market. Or you're in position to get whoever the top quarterbacks are next year in the draft. And people say, well, nobody's good enough this year. Nobody, every year somebody emerges. At this time last year, nobody was talking about Zach Wilson. Now everybody can't stop talking about Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it's it's amazing. And then at one point, everyone was talking about Devontae Smith at wide receiver, and now his stock has kind of cooled off, to put it nicely, at least over the past couple of weeks. I like the trade, and I didn't want them to go quarterback unless there was really the right guy there. And, I didn't like how Jeffrey Lurie came out and said, we're not going to go there, for the same reasons that you didn't like it, John, because you just should evaluate everything and keep all your options open. But, there's the report from Ian Rappaport saying the Eagles tried to get Wilson, but then get Wilson at 3, I should say, but failed, so they moved back. It's kind of, I don't love that aspect, because I guess the long-winded explanation here is, what is their true game plan, both short-term and long-term, and in this draft? I guess they don't even know, do they?
Well, I don't know if they don't know. It's that, like I said, I think they would have taken Zach Wilson. I think that's the player they targeted, and realized today, basically, there's no avenue to get there. And that's what caused the trade back. I think to a lesser degree, if you're saying 1A and 1B, I think Sewell would be 1B, and I think they don't see an avenue to get him as well. So at that point, at that point, I think they shift gears. Everybody's got to have plan Bs, plan Cs, plan Ds, and so forth. And I think that's kind of what happened. So I think they had 2 players they would have liked at 6. In the case of Wilson, they probably would have moved up to get him. And now that those 2 players are out of the question, they went in a different direction.
All right, so you said a few minutes ago, John, that if you press me today, I think the Eagles, will go corner, edge rusher, or offensive lineman at the 12 spot. What are some names now that are going to be lingering around 12th overall that could fall to the Eagles?
Well, I think the 3 corners, Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley, I think one of them certainly not going to be there. I think more likely than not, Surtain would be the one guy. You kind of know that's probably not going to make it to 12. I think Horn also might not make it to 12. I think Farley's going to drop a little bit because he had back surgery. So I definitely think he's going to be there, but maybe 2 end up there. So I think they're in the equation. I think the kid from Michigan, Quiddy Payne, he's in the equation as an edge rusher. Rashawn Slater, you'd start talking about the offensive lineman. And as I mentioned, you talked about Devontae Smith. I mean, people see, he won the Heisman Trophy. He was so good at Alabama. And they wonder why, Jalen Waddle's graded ahead of him, who was injured. And obviously at Alabama thought Waddle was better. Only after he got injured did they kind of shift to Smith, and they're so good. You have these big numbers, but it's not about producing at the college level. It's, he's 165 pounds. It's about evaluating at the pro level. And there are big concerns. And when you said his stock is kind of falling, I do want to address that. Stock doesn't generally rise and fall that much with NFL people. It sort of, when you look at draft Twitter, it rises and falls when more legitimate information comes out. In other words, we start talking to the actual scouts and the actual personnel people, and they kind of tell us what they're thinking, and a lot of times they like players more than, say, draft Twitter. And that's where you see the rise and the fall, because we kind of get a feel for who they really like versus what, the draftniks have been saying for months, which is not always the same information. And that's how you see guys rise and fall. They're not necessarily falling. In the case of Smith, I don't think he was ever in the equation to be the 6th overall pick, just from the league standpoint.
So the one thing that this trade shows me, John, is that they are fully committed to Jalen Hurts and giving him an opportunity to earn this job, not short term, but long term. And my only, hesitation, if I'm being a little bit picky, is I want him to have a legitimate opportunity, meaning I don't want them to just sort of not build on offense and tank this year, so to speak, at least with the offensive weapons or lack thereof. Do you still think they're going to be aggressive in building around Jalen Hurts and trying to get someone that can be dangerous on offense?
Yeah, I don't know if it's, as I said, if you're talking about the 12th overall pick, I don't know if it's going to be an offensive player any longer. But they're certainly trying to build this team. And they're certainly not trying to tank. But it's interesting, Jalen Hurts is getting an opportunity, however you want to describe that. Obviously, they would have liked to have had Zach Wilson. So, already you have that in the background. But they weren't able to get him, so they're going to move forward, and Jalen Hurts is going to have an opportunity. And that's how he was sort of doing. He's creating more than one door, so to speak. So, he's the beautiful thing about getting an opportunity to play if you're an NFL player, and, whether it's a second-round pick like Jalen all the way down to an undrafted free agent like Alex Singleton or somebody of that nature, when you get an opportunity, if you play well enough, nobody's taking you off the field. So that's sort of the door that Jalen Hurts has. And if he plays well, they're not taking him off the field. He's going to be the Eagles quarterback moving forward. And everything's great. And then you have 3 first-round picks in 2022, most likely. And you continue to build up around Jalen Hurts. If he fails, you go in a different direction. You have all the assets you could possibly need to get either a rookie quarterback or a veteran quarterback. More than enough assets. So I think if you're judging it from Howie Roseman's perspective, that's what he's doing. He's creating multiple avenues to success. And that's, I think, the good part of the trade. The bad part is analytically, it's a much more likely scenario. You get a really good player at 6 than a really good player at 12. And it was funny. I was talking to a personnel guy in the NFL before the trade. And I always ask, NFL people always have tiers. And there's that first tier, second tier in the first round. Like, who are the legitimate top 10 picks, I asked him, and I said, how deep is it before you have a fall off? And it's generally around 14 or 15. It's a little bit less this year, according to most. And this guy said 10 or 11. And, boom, the Eagles make the trade and they're at 12. So you go from 6, where you're in that group of 10 or 11, to 12, where in theory you're in the second tier. So but even without that, and that's just one guy's opinion. Even without that, it's obvious. All you have to do is look at the picks over the years. 6 is easier to find a difference maker than 12, and 12 is easier than 20, and so forth.
Is there any position that you would view a bad choice at 12 now? Meaning, they go with a corner, and that's the second corner off the board, and you say to yourself, well, if you're going to go corner, why not just stay at 6 and get the best available? Like, is there any type of scenario where you could say, man, given this trade now, that was a bad pick?
No, not really. And in fact, that's one of the pluses, too. You actually get a little bit more freedom, I think, at 12 to go in different directions. And, the belief, because of the money and everything else, and the value of different positions, and every organization puts values on different positions, and just talked about it. The Eagles believe quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. As you go down, you have a little bit more freedom to say, okay, this is the best guy on the board. Let's just take him. Maybe that's to use Devontae Smith as an example. And, we have been talking, I know, one of the recent shows, I mentioned, the Eagles don't value receiver. And at some point, that kind of came back to them and said, are we really going to take a receiver at 6? I don't know. I don't know how you do that. And they came to that same conclusion.
I mean, you look at, I saw a graphic of like a stat earlier today, like the past 5 years and all of the Eagles draft picks in the past 5 years and what they've done. I mean, you've seen that as well. It's nothing. It's nothing. And the weapons that they've had, I know they've had a lot of injuries, but I don't know how they can stay true to that thought process, John.
Well, I think they can stay true to it because they've only had 4 picks in the top 10. They've all hit, unless you want to argue Carson Wentz didn't, but I would argue strongly against that. Corey was a very good player, Corey Simon, for years. Lane Johnson obviously is a tremendous player. Donovan McNabb, best quarterback in franchise history. So when they have been there, they've hit with that philosophy. Sometimes it's luck. You can go back to the Lane Johnson year. Chip Kelly really wanted Deion Jordan, and Miami jumped up in front of the Eagles to get him, and that saved Philadelphia. But they defaulted to what they believe in the offensive line. So, I mean, there's always, I guess, a little bit of luck involved. But to date, and again, Howie always, they don't pick in the top 10 a lot, and he said that in the past that we've talked about. When you're up that high, you better take advantage of it. And he's generally talking about quarterback. And from all indications, they tried to take advantage of it. They identified the one quarterback they wanted. Trevor Lawrence, I don't even discuss. They'd love to have Trevor Lawrence, but that's not even in the conversation. So they identified the one guy, and they couldn't get him. So they decided to go in a different direction.
All right, let's choose violence right here. What are the chances the Eagles get Mac Jones at 12 overall?
I put that up. I would love to see it. I don't think I never put anything past this team. Obviously they're not going to take him at 6. That's a little bit too high. But you do. I just talked about freedom. You have a little bit more freedom at 12 to do some quirky things. And I've said for a long time, Mac Jones is going to go. It's another perfect example of draft Twitter versus NFL people. He's going to go a lot higher than people think. Wouldn't be surprised. I've been saying it, top 15. People have their eyes on New England. So if he goes 15, is that, that's not far off from 12. But ultimately, I don't think the Eagles believe in him as a top tier quarterback that can lead them. But I got to be honest, from a selfish standpoint, I would love to see that, because that might break social media in this town.
Well, if that's the case, then yeah, let's root for it. That'd be fantastic.
I would love it just for the controversy. It would be insane. It would be crazy. People would lose their minds, and they would hate the pick. And obviously, 2 years later, he turned into a great player. Look at Donovan. I mean, people hated that pick. A large portion of the fan base, the story. People went up to New York and booed the pick and wanted Ricky Williams. And hey, sometimes the NFL teams get it right.
What do you think's a more challenging situation, Donovan's or Carson's? Like getting booed from the jump, or dealing with what Carson did, 2 years in?
Well, I guess I would have to have a definition. Like, I think Donovan was set up great as a player with Andy Reid. But just from a fan base standpoint, I would say Donovan had it certainly more difficult than Carson early on. I mean, Carson didn't have to win over everybody. Everybody was in love with Carson. It went the opposite direction. Everyone loved him, and then it turned into hate. In Donovan's case, everyone didn't like him. Not everyone, small fraction of the fan base, and then he turned everybody around, and then at the end, it kind of got bad again. But I think from a player's perspective, I think, Donovan was set up beautifully with Andy Reid. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rest is history. You can fact check that. So that worked out overall pretty darn well. John, just a couple minutes left here. What are the implications and the domino effect of the trades overall? So, the 49ers trade with Miami, and then that allowed the Eagles to trade out of the 6th spot. So talk about the ripple effect, San Francisco's plan at quarterback, and how that impacts, the quarterback carousel overall.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's taking a quarterback. There's no question about it. You could tell that in the divisional round of the playoffs as they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was done with Jimmy Garoppolo. It just took him a long way to get to where he wanted to be. And it's interesting because they want Zach Wilson as well. So I think there's some cross fingers that the Jets will take Sewell, and they'll be able to get Zach Wilson. But if they don't, they'll take Justin Fields or Trey Lance, whoever they like the best. And I think there's at least a chance you could have quarterback in the top 4 picks of this draft. I ultimately, I don't think it's going to happen, but there's at least a chance. And then, San Francisco is, no matter what they say again, they're going to try to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, and you have to ask yourself if that's where New England wants to go, because Bill Belichick liked them a lot. He was sort of hoping that the timing would work out, where they could go directly from Tom Brady to Jimmy Garoppolo, but Tom kept playing great. So that didn't work out. It'll be interesting if they try to get him back, because then I think that affects Mac Jones as well and where he ends up, because so many people are putting 2 and 2 together with the Patriots there.
Has there ever been 4 straight quarterbacks taken?
Good question. I can't think of it. I would have to look.
Yeah, I'm trying to quickly look, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, I doubt it, but that's difficult. I mean, the draft has been around for so long. I'll have to look it up, but we got a good chance. I mean, there's a lot of sort of 1-2s most recently. They necessarily haven't worked out. If you think about, the one year you had Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, then you had the Jared Goff, Carson Wentz year, which again didn't work out long term for either team. But if you want to, Jared Goff actually took the Rams to a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz, we all knew what he did here. I don't know if you could call that a bust either. It sort of depends on your definition.
John McMullen, we do this every night at 7:30. NFL Eagles Insider. Follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen. PhillyVoice.com, SI.com is where you can find all of his written work, and you can listen to him every Saturday. So tune in tomorrow morning on Extending the Play, 10 a.m. right here on AM 1490. Sports Betting Radio for a more in-depth look at everything that took place today surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles. Johnny Mack, I appreciate it, man. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I won't go see you tomorrow. I guarantee that. I'll be the happiest I've ever been to see
you. I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Later.
All right, buddy.
Later.
Yeah.
All right, there he is, Johnny Mack. Good stuff. All right, let's get to a break. We're going to get to the top of the hour VSiN update. When we come back, we'll have Matt Perrault joining us from Sports Map Radio to talk about March Madness Sweet 16 best bets. Keep it locked in right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio.
Football in Philadelphia is a lifestyle, a passion from birth, and a personal responsibility to know the game. Boo when necessary. And think about
EATLES, Eagles!
Every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Birds 365 was created for you. Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Birds 365. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network. Watch it live on YouTube.